So welcome. We're so excited to have everyone here today to talk about stalking. We'll do some introductions and some self-care notes to start with. I'm Michelle with Family Violence Project. We're the Domestic Violence Resource Center serving Kennebec and Somerset Counties. And I'm joined by Victor. Do you want to say hi, Victor?
Well,
We're we're both community educators here, and we are really excited to talk about stalking because this is something that's really prevalent. We want to start though first with a content warning. What we talk about when we're in any room can be really hard to talk about, can bring up feelings and emotions that maybe people weren't expecting. So please know that we fully support you in taking care of yourself, whether that's stepping away for a moment, shutting your camera off. You're all eating lunch, so feel free to, have your camera off regardless. But do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And know that our helpline is here 24 hours a day for anyone. So if like tonight this brings up something, or even after the talk, we'll stay on for a few minutes after. But if you're watching this on YouTube, later, know that our helpline is here 24 hours a day to talk to folks about what's going on. And we're here for people, even if it's something that's happened in the past, if it's something going on currently, if it's something that's going on with a friend or family member or someone you're working with, we're here for you no matter who you are. So know that you can call our helpline, and we'll put that numbers towards the end of this slide. We should have it here, but we'll do that next time. But so thank you so much for being here. Please take care of yourself, and we're going to spend the next half hour talking about stalking. Take it away, Victor.
all right. So the natural place to start is what is stalking? And I'm sure that you all have heard this term before, whether it's someone saying that they stalk people on social media or um, types of media that have stalking or just a general conversation about it. I think the idea that we get a lot of the times is like someone looming in the shadows, something that's almost horror movie-esque. Um, So it's really important that we start by breaking down what stalking actually is versus what has been presented to us as a media. So the first thing to note that stalking is a pattern of behavior that is directed at a specific person, which would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. Stalking, as a definition, requires a pattern of behavior that requires two or more behaviors. So not just following someone, this is more than just a coincidence, but making a real effort to make a reasonable person feel fear. Stalking is a chosen behavior intended to exert power and control over another individual. So this is a tactic that someone is using to make someone else behave in a certain way. An individual is targeted, though those close to them may be targeted as well. So normally we think of stalking as one person following another, trying to make another person afraid. There may be collateral in that if a person has children, or if stalking a person's family members also gets to them, or something to that effect. The pattern of behavior causing fear is what differentiates stalking from harassment. Harassment certainly makes us uncomfortable and it can make us feel afraid in the moment. But these are more isolated events. Typically, we think of them as in a certain setting, whereas stalking is this repeated, really attempt to control someone. And then the last point we want to emphasize is that stalking is a crime. And so there are legal remedies that someone could seek if they are being stalked, that we of course acknowledge that those remedies or those processes might not be for everyone. So we want to start with that definition before we move forward.
So people may be wondering why we as domestic violence educators are talking about stalking. And it's because, we see this a lot in intimate partner relationships. And we see it happening a lot like during the relationship. I think a lot of people think about like, oh, stalking happens, it can happen at any time and it may happen before. But oftentimes it happens during the relationship, which also makes after the relationship really easy because then all the things are in place. If they know their routines, they know where they go, they know who they're close to. They may have put tracking apps on their phone. They may have done all of these things during the relationship, and then it makes stalking them really easy afterwards. If you were able to attend our last one or see it on YouTube, we talked about how ending a relationship doesn't necessarily make someone safe. And stalking is a big part of that because, someone may be trying to leave their abusive partner, and now, they may have been stalked during the relationship, but then after they left, they're experiencing the stalking also. And it can be really, really scary for folks when, they're trying to live their lives, they're trying to like create separation, but their ex is continuing to stalk them.
So we want to continue by talking a little bit about what these stalking behaviors actually look like. And this graphic is a really good example because you see all these 4 different tactics, but they are overlapping, right? So a lot of these tactics or our kinds, the tactics might be shared, the impacts are certainly shared. So first is surveillance, and that's what we most commonly think of, right? Like watching someone, following them, gathering information, and might be taking photos, taking notes. Intimidation, so that can be verbal, flat out saying to someone that you intend them harm, or sending messages over email, text, etc. Leaving messages on property, which may not necessarily be verbal, but something like flowers or gifts. Interference, so disrupting someone's life, making some place that they went to before feel unsafe, maybe targeting their place of work with the intent to have them fired. Um, just something that will change a person's life, their routine, make them no longer feel safe where they are. And then life invasion, maybe showing up at a group that the survivor has gone to repeatedly. Now the stalker is all of a sudden there, going to their place of work, going to the grocery store at the times they know they're going to be there. Not simply a coincidence of same place, same time. We know that Maine is a small place and that these things happen, but this is very purposeful trying to show up and interfere in someone's life.
And so one of the things that we talk about is context, because, you may hear of someone like sharing something and feeling like, what they're saying is not equivalent, like in my brain, about to the amount of alarm this person is feeling like. So here's an example. A patient, a friend, a coworker comes in unnerved. They said they just got flowers delivered to their work and they're really upset about it. What do you think might cause that person to feel a level of upset? Because you might be like, oh, they got flowers. Like, that's so nice. That's so sweet. Like, that's so exciting. Who doesn't want flowers delivered to their work or on their doorstep or something? So think about what might cause someone to be alarmed. Does anyone, I know people may be eating, but anyone have any ideas of what might be causing alarm for this person?
It just makes me think about maybe just unwanted contact with somebody else, possibly,
Mhm.
that could be triggering.
Yeah, it totally could be. Yeah. And that's, it may be unwanted. It may also be maybe they've moved, maybe they started a new job and didn't want that person to know and thought they didn't know. And now like they're sending that message of like, I know where you are, I know where you're working, I can interfere with this, or, this example, the flowers were daisies. The person's only received daisies from their abusive ex, who they moved away from and who shouldn't know where they are. So when people when we hear of something happening that you're like, why is this a thing? Being able to be like, tell me more about this, tell me more about what's going on. Why is this upsetting to you? Not just be like, I think it's easy to be like, you got flowers. Who can be mad about flowers? But there may be a reason that this person is really upset about flowers. And this is where the relationship between the stalker and the person, it's often only seen, it's a connection that they have based on history. So maybe the child got a toy from someone and it was actually like the bear that person was given on their first date, the same exact bear. So this bear may just look like, oh, that's so nice that they got a teddy bear. But when the person realizes it, when that parent realizes, oh my gosh, this is the bear, they know where we are, they're following us, whatever it may be. So that relationship is a really big piece of that. And knowing I think we talk about, stalker calling, like when someone calls you over and over, like Elisa said, like that's unwanted contact. If you're not answering, if you're trying to ignore them, even calling over and over is stalking, or sending repeated messages. If that person's not responding and does not want that contact, that is stalking. And I think we forget that because like we're, have this electronic leash that we're so connected to, that has an impact on the person. It really wears people down to have that going on at, all times of the day. Which brings us into the next slide, which is about impact. This is a quote from a survivor. We try to bring survivor voices into the room whenever we can. And I'll just read it out loud for folks. Going to work, attending your kids' activities, going out for the evening, these things seem routine. For me, they're terrifying because I will never know what he will do or when he will show up. So thinking about that, like thinking about how much this impacts someone's life, where they have to plan where they're going and be constantly vigilant or hyper vigilant, planning every moment, trying to figure out like, okay, if this person shows up, what am I going to do? And just that feeling of like looking over your shoulder at all times. And like Victor said, harassment is different because it can be annoying, but stalking, it causes that fear. It causes, emotional distress for folks. And you can go ahead to the next slide, Victor. And here are some other impacts from stalking, experiencing mental health issues. This may be, depression, anxiety, insomnia, social dysfunction, like not knowing who you can trust. People may lose time from work. There's a statistic that says half of people who are experiencing stalking may miss more than 5 days of work because of this. So they could lose their job as a result of that also. So we say that to say, you're in a workplace, if you're in HR, maybe if someone's missing work, to be like, hey, like, is something going on? Let's talk about this. How can we support you? Because if someone is avoiding work because, maybe their stalker works there, maybe their ex, their previous intimate partner knows that they're there, and so maybe they're avoiding it to try to stay safe, or maybe they're avoiding it because they don't know what to do to be safe. They may relocate, which is, when we think about relocating, that is very intensive for people, like especially in this housing market. Relocating is not easy, but we hear of 1 in 7 folks relocate to avoid a stalker. And that's really scary too, because if you relocate, does that mean the stalker is going to stop following you? We don't know that. So they may relocate and still be going through this, which is really scary. And intense for them, for their children. Relocating is not easy. They may be constantly looking over their shoulder, like I said earlier, like that hypervigilance, and they may be written off as like paranoid. How many times have we heard that term paranoid being used for people? When are they paranoid, or is this a logical response to being stalked? And I would think it's a logical response when they're used to their ex like showing up everywhere, that causes fear. And, of course, they're going to be looking over their shoulder and safety planning at every corner. They may feel like they're going crazy. They might be wondering if it's all in their mind. Their plans, they may have to change their plans constantly to try to stay ahead of the person. This may cause isolation. So they may lose their support system because maybe they're canceling because they know, their partner is always knowing where they are, and that may feel really scary. It can cause physical health problems, ulcers, migraines, gastrointestinal distress, all kinds of things, difficulty concentrating, remembering things. Where this is, a hospital, we want to point these parts out because, when people are experiencing these things, what are the other things that are also happening? So that chronic stress, we know has physical and mental health impacts. Then fear for self, for family, for pets, for others. Like Victor said, the stalking can go beyond that person, and they can cause harm to other people and family members and pets as well, which is really scary for folks.
And so we really want to highlight just how many people are going through stalking. And this is a national figure, but can certainly be applied to Maine. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience stalking in their lifetimes. Sometimes we think of stalking and even domestic violence as something that happens out there, but this is a reality for people in our communities. And we're presenting this for Redington-Fairview, so in the hospital, but wherever in your communities, there can be that real situation that someone's experiencing physical distress, mental distress, because they're experiencing this. And that's why we're talking about it, so that we can think about all the possible root causes when we're interfacing with the community and trying to support them.
And when we look at who is experiencing stalking, or who are stalkers, rather, current or former intimate partners make up a huge amount of stalkers. Their female victims are 43% of the people who are experiencing experiencing stalking, rather. There are some acquaintance, but I feel like that happens less, or we hear about it less. Sorry, not acquaintance. Acquaintance, these stats show that people generally know who their stalker is. I think if you Google stalker, we think of like the stranger, like someone lurking in the shadows, but we know that it's generally not strangers. It usually is people we know, and most often an intimate or a current or former intimate partner. It can sometimes be a family member, sometimes a person of authority, which, think of how scary that would be for someone in a position of power to be doing this. And, unfortunately, people who are stalked aren't always believed and aren't always taken seriously, because people are easy to write it off, like, oh, well, you were in public, other people are in public, or, other things like that, when the reality that people are facing is that this is going on for them. And, we want to support them in being safe and feeling safe and being protected. And on average, intimate partners pose the greatest threat to their victims. Does anyone have any idea, or any can you think of why that would be? And it's okay. I know people are eating. When people
Can you
have those
say it
belief
again?
systems. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Why you asked why it would be about intimate partners and stalking? Is that what was the
Yeah, well, like, why would they be the most dangerous to their victims?
Probably, I would think because they have intimate knowledge of them, and like the emotional connection is closer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that. And also, like, they have that belief system that they have the right to control or hurt their partner. Like, that belief system is sort of built into, the belief system of that has allowed them to be abusive to their partner. So that belief system that they have the right to hurt and control their partner is part of that. Yeah. And plus that intimate knowledge, like you said, Elisa.
So we want to go back to that sort of idea of like the boogeyman in the shadows and think about how has stalking been normalized in our culture, and how do we challenge these normalizations? So we have some examples here. If you've ever heard someone saying they've stalked someone on social media, typically what they mean, right, is like they've looked through their LinkedIn or their Facebook, their Instagram, to find information about them and then refer to that as stalking. The sort of issue with this, as you can imagine, is then this term becomes something funny for like, oh, I looked at someone's program, I stalked them, and sort of like devalues the real life experiences of survivors who are in this threatening position. TV shows, movies, books sort of like glamorize it. You, the TV show on Netflix, I don't know if anyone's watched it, is all about a stalker trying to win the affections of his target. The Twilight Saga, we really think of them as like fun YA movies, books that are kind of like cheesy, but like the whole premise is that Edward's following Bella and keeping track of where she is in this very like not okay way, right? And then a really big other point I want to bring up is like the playing hard to get. So like the assumption you act like someone might ask someone else out, they're denied, and the thought is, well, I'm a nice person. I should be with this person. They're just playing hard to get. They just, don't want to say yes right away, and continue to push, to follow, to press on this person to sort of force them to act in a certain way. In this case, be with them in an intimate way. And so one thing I want us to think about is how do we challenge these normalizations? And I don't know if anyone has any immediate thoughts about that.
I think just by becoming more aware of just sort of that casual dialogue that you were talking about, like going on somebody's social media. I think I've said it before. And it was to be funny because I'm not a friend with this person, but I went through their social media account. And so I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. I already know a lot about you. I already stalked you on Facebook, just kind of like as an offhanded comment. But I think by making yourself more educated and aware, that can help. And also like keeping other people accountable too when they say it and providing them some education.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to flip to this graphic to sort of talk about it more. Attending this webinar, educating yourself, bringing this education to your workplaces, to your communities, to your families, that's a really great way of challenging it. Another great way of challenging it, these normalizations, is calling it out. So it's not unrequited love or just being awkward, not harmless or romantic. For those of us, you might have heard when you're a kid, especially for like little girls, oh, he's just being mean or he's just teasing you because he's liking you. These displays of affection that are unwanted. And so it should just be called out. I'm not saying stalking's happening on the playgrounds, but when that holdover becomes someone really chasing after someone who just wants to be left alone. So where we see it, it's very important that we call it out and put that word in its serious context.
So how do we support people who are experiencing stalking? Avoid that normalizing language. When people are saying they're being stalked, to be able to take it seriously and know that there's a difference between that and the way we unfortunately see it. We don't want to minimize or downplay it. Really want to hear what they're saying, hear how it's affecting them, really validating those feelings that they're feeling, because it is scary. It's not flattering to have someone following you. Despite what all the romantic comedies say, it is not flattering. It's not a compliment. Like, it's creepy. It's not okay. The way that we accept it in romantic comedies is a problem. And I'm a person who loves rom-coms. So it was really disappointing when I was like, wait a second, this is really creepy. Like, never watch Twilight the same again. We want to practice non-judgment. People, they may be feeling crazy, they may sound crazy, but like when you see we encourage people to keep a stalking log to show like what's happening, because that may help them like see what's happening and help them to prove to like law enforcement or other institutions like this is happening to me, and that can feel validating to be able to see it on paper. People may be really upset about what's happening, and so to be able to validate that and say, yeah, like that, what you're feeling is real, what you're experiencing is real. How can I support you? Trusting them to be the experts on what they need. We may want to say, well, if they keep calling you, you need to change your number. But do you think the stalking is going to stop because they've changed their number, or is it going to escalate to something else? We want to, we can ask things and offer suggestions if the person, is okay with that. But we trust people to make their choices because they know what's going to work for them. Maybe if they change their number, now other people that are supports don't have their number, and that's a problem. And, maybe that stalker is going to escalate to the next level. We don't know. And so we really hope that you listen to folks, refer folks to the Family Violence Project. We have advocates who can support folks who are going through this too.
Great. And we have some resources for folks. We are certainly a resource, and this is our helpline number that is available 24/7. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what we do. Like I said before, well, there's a criminal element to it, and the criminal courts is a whole nother thing, but there is things to do on the civil legal side. So protection from abuse orders and protection from harassment orders. Pine Tree Legal Assistance, which is based out of Augusta, has really, really good guides on how to obtain a PFA or PFH, like what that actually means, and the processes. The graphics that we used today came from the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, otherwise known as SPARC. They also provide the stalking log, so that they are a really great organization to check out. They have ready-made slideshows, graphics, tools for survivors and for providers and community members. And so we encourage you to check those resources out. And we've also provided handouts in the email that Brittany sent.
And so our services, like we said, we have the 24-hour helpline. People can call anytime, even if it's 3 in the morning. If you need support, we are there for you. We have emergency shelter in Kennebec and Somerset Counties. We have court advocates. We do have court folks who may be able to help you get that PFA or PFH if you are being stalked. We have a liaison to Child Protective Services who I feel like they're like the middleman, the interpreter. When CPS is being involved, when there's domestic abuse, they can help that survivor navigate the CPS system and also help explain to CPS like what may be going on in that survivor's life, because they may not always understand like what choices people are making and why. And so I feel like we're sometimes an interpreter. We do individual advocacy, which includes support, safety planning. We have support and education groups for folks, supportive housing. We have school-based education, going in and talking to kids about this and really encouraging kids to like think about what they're seeing in the media and is this okay and is this not okay? Being able to talk about these things is huge. We do specialized training and consultation like this. And we also have a certified domestic violence intervention class called Change Work, which is for men. And we also co-facilitate Respect Me, which is for women. And all of our survivor services are free and confidential. And does anyone have any questions? We're right at 12:30, my goodness. Our phone numbers are here, but anyone in the crowd have any questions that they want to talk about or comments? And it's okay if you don't. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you all taking the time. We know that your time is valuable.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to us via our phones or emails at any point after this, even if it's a couple weeks if you have something you want to ask.
Yeah, thank you so much. Did you want to say something else?